I want to kind of dig into David Grusch, which we kind of been covering the last 2 weeks. He's been the forefront recently, as Lou Elizondo was previously, and Blink-182 guy Tom DeLonge was before that. But he's been kind of the front man that's kind of pushing this agenda forward, even though he doesn't really know exactly what it is. I believe that's going on here. It's interesting to watch what's happening. And since he's come out with all this stuff, he has had to explain from the government point of view why it has been so secretive. And this is what he says about that.
Now, Grusch first made his bombshell claims in an exclusive interview with News Nation in June. That led to an historic congressional hearing last week where he testified under oath that he's aware of a secret U.S. government program involving the recovery and reverse engineering of non-human craft. The Pentagon has continued to say it hasn't found, quote, verifiable information to support Grusch's claims. In the new interview, Grusch also addresses that pushback, alleging that the culture of secrecy surrounding the Manhattan Project when the U.S. developed the atomic bomb also extends to UFOs.
Why, if it's true, has the government not acknowledged it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a multifaceted question. You know, it goes back, 80, 90 years ago when this was first created, and they, translated some of the secrecy from the Manhattan Project onto this subject because, they weren't sure how ontologically shocking it was going to be to the world populace. And then two, as you can imagine, it's a Pandora's box for, potential military and weapons development type reverse engineering activities. So they decided to keep it under wraps for many years.
Merrick, thank you very much for joining us. You wrote today that there's one of two options here that's going on from the U.S. government: a decades-long cover-up or a staggeringly brazen psychological disinformation campaign. So my question to you is, what's to be gained in either scenario by the U.S. government? Why would they do that?
So it's a really good question, Mike, and thanks for having me, first of all. And I think I'm going to dive into the realm of speculation here, which I'm very uncomfortable doing. I'm much happier analyzing the facts as they exist. But if you believe the whistleblower, David Grusch, in scenario one, if there was in fact this decades-long UFO retrieval and reverse engineering effort, it was partially born out of potentially Cold War politics, but also a fear that the ontological shock, the societal shock of revealing this information would be too much, and there could potentially be societal unrest and political and social unrest. So that's one side of it. If we're dealing with a disinformation operation, this could potentially be, and again, I'm speculating and not comfortable doing so, but this could be to potentially fool our adversaries into believing that we could potentially have remarkable technology. It could run the gamut. So that's my speculative answer.
So I also want to bring out there that there are Christians inside of the Pentagon who recognize that this thing is absolutely spiritual, and it's the kind of spiritual that they don't want because the characteristics that it employs is dangerous. And Starfall brings that out, but I'm sure that they can't always say that it's a religious thing on the news, so they bring out different characteristics of this. But that was interesting to me, that those are the two things that, or these ideas are what David Grusch was bringing out. What are your thoughts, John?
Well, it is very interesting. I hadn't really thought about it from that point of view. The last point he makes is that it's possibly a disinformation campaign, not just to fool the U.S. citizenry, to fool other nations we might be in conflict with, whether it be a Cold War now or eventually a hot war, China, Russia, all that nonsense. So that's a good point if you think about it.
You're breaking up really bad for some reason. I think I understood what you were saying, and now you're fine. So I don't know what was going on. But I understood what you said. Yeah, it's a very weird, very, very interesting thing to try to fool our adversaries to thinking that we have so much stuff. And personally, I have a theory that if we do have these things that have been pushing our technology along, that have been created. I believe they are physical deceptions. Matthew brought out that there have been physical deceptions. Look in Exodus, the first two or three plagues that happened were physically changed by Pharaoh's magicians. And so I think that we will see some physical deception, such as some reverse engineering of, dare I say, technology put together by non-human intelligence, aka fallen angels. And if that does happen, it's not going to surprise a Christian. So I'm fascinated to see that the Bible is always accurate, because the Bible said that in the last days, knowledge will increase. Now, whether that some say, well, that's knowledge about the prophecies in the Bible. That is true. I believe it's not only that. We're going to have knowledge about technology. I mean, think about it. In the last 5,500 years, we've only been able to shoot bows and arrows and lob cannonballs at each other, and suddenly we're flying in jets, and we're able to shoot lasers at drones. What is going on here? You think that it was just us coming up with this stuff? I don't know. We're going to find out, though. I think we're going to find out sooner than we realize. What do you think, John?
I agree to that. Hopefully not breaking up anymore. But yeah, I agree that it is very interesting that our technology has progressed so fast in just the last 5,200 years. And it does make you wonder if there's something else behind it, whether people in these scientific circles are doing seances, or what else could be possibly going on to bring out new technologies. So something that we should definitely research.
Absolutely. So the next thing on the docket tonight, government legislation over alien spacecraft and biologics. We kind of covered that earlier, but I kind of want to go over that again for some of the new viewers. This is weird stuff that's happening in mainstream media. Watch this.
Right. So all this got started with News Nation's exclusive interview of the former Defense Intelligence or National Geospatial Agency official David Grusch. He just testified before the House Oversight Committee, largely as a result of that interview that we did. And what I hear you guys, a lot of you folks saying who are experts who have looked at this for a long time, is that there's been a cover-up. Now, I've lived in Washington for a long time. I've covered Washington. If this has been going on for decades, if foreign governments have been involved, if aviators have been involved, if citizens have been involved, how have they been able to keep it secret so long? That's the one thing that I can't get past.
Mike, it's the million-dollar question, and I worked in the government previously, and I was extremely skeptical of this story when it first came out, because from my experience, was in the same boat. But then I started looking back into kind of the history of the UFO story, and it turns out that there have been these rumors and leaks and deathbed confessions. They just never bubbled up to the surface. They always kind of stayed underground with these UFO circles. So the bottom line is, from my perspective, these rumors have been around for decades. They just never really saw the light of day the way they are now.
So in the 1970s, Carl Sagan popularized the saying, quote, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence." We've heard some extraordinary claims. I don't think there's any question about that. But we've seen limited evidence. Now, the Tic Tac videos are unexplained. Even the Defense Department, the AARO, can't explain what those things were. But, are we at the point now where most Americans, do you think we've turned a corner where most Americans are going to start taking this seriously?
I think we're getting there. Now, I'm going to point briefly to Senator Chuck Schumer's legislation, which is now passed the Senate and is now moving on to negotiations with the House. And it's basically, it's pretty extraordinary. And I don't think many people have caught on to what is in this legislation. It mentions non-human intelligence 24 times. It discusses legacy programs of the sort that the whistleblower describes. It has a mandate for the exertion of eminent domain over any UFOs that are in the possession of private contractors. So that means the government would forcibly take control of such equipment and material. And that goes for non-human biologics as well. This is pretty extraordinary language that we see. So I think once this information filters out, if and when that does become law, I think we're going to see potentially much more coverage. And I think that will open up the aperture for the general public.
So this is the big deal, because this says that it's not just a couple news outlets reporting on this, or David Grusch, maybe even being a little crazy. This is the government reacting to this and saying, okay, we need laws that say anything that someone may have, whether it be craft that we don't understand where they came from, or biologics, that's fancy word for saying bodies, parts, things that aren't made by humans. That's eminent domain, which is funny because that's a it's a law term that I learned a lot about when I took real estate. Government can take your stuff, basically is what that says. It can take your stuff and we'll pay you for it. But it's ours and we're going to take it. So eminent domain. They're going to take it and they, even if they've given it to government contractors, because this is what's happened. They've gotten around the laws by saying we don't know anything about any objects or anything like that because they gave them away. And people like what is that? Man, it escapes my brain. Someone in the chat's gonna name the name, but there's well-known government contractors that possibly
Martin,
have
maybe?
this stuff. Say again?
Lockheed Martin.
Lockheed Martin, yeah, that's the one. And there's a couple others that I can't remember, but yeah, they possibly have this stuff, and so the government's saying, yeah, give it back now. That's ours. What I think is happening here, if that stuff is true, we're going to war here pretty soon. We got Russia and China down our back, and I believe that the government's going to be like, hey, we haven't figured out some of this amazing technology that's on this stuff. If this stuff is true, we haven't seen this stuff yet, but if this stuff is true and they have this technology hanging out, they're going to want their top scientists out of Google, out of the market, out of all this other stuff that they're working to try to get our clicks, and they're going to want them working on anti-gravity or whatnot. So that's my personal opinion. I have nothing to back that up, but it could very well be that we've been given technology to kill ourselves. Wouldn't that be a sadistic thing to do? Anyways, I digress.
Wouldn't be the first time, I guess.
What do you think? I mean, I'm going to give it over to you before I go on to this next clip here. What do you think, John?
I do think that it's very interesting that they mention biologics. I mean, like I said, that's just a fancy term for, well, in the Air Force, they use it for mangled bodies that pulled out of crash wreckage. So that's very interesting. I Googled that, by the way. I didn't just know that.
Did you used to be I forget, did you used to be in the military?
Nah, I tried, but they wouldn't take me, unfortunately.
Oh, but you were a pilot, though, right?
Yeah, I used to fly planes. I flew, I did flight school, and then once I had finished that, I had gone on a mission trip in Bolivia, and I flew there. Only as kind of ride along more than anything, because I did not have a pilot. So
very good, very good. Well, appreciate your work and your mission work out there.
Oh, thank you.
Best
experience of my life.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Chiapas, Mexico, and a few other places down there, and it was an eye opener. And I love the people, and it was beautiful. I want to jump into this story about the admiral. They had a U.S. Navy admiral. He's retired now. It's Tim Gallaudet. Let's look at this real quick. I want to see what he says because this is a new story. Fascinating. Watch this.
Retired Rear Admiral of the U.S. Navy, Tim Gallaudet. And now he talked about his own UFO experience and getting an email about it that disappeared from his inbox. We have the clip, and then we'll come back for a question.
Admiral, I'm curious. I'm told you have actually had an experience with seeing something and catching video of something. Tell us about that.
Well, exactly, right. And this is really why I've been supporting Ryan Graves for his Americans for Safe Aerospace. In 2015, when I was a one-star admiral, I was in charge of a support command of meteorologists and oceanographers that provided weather forecasts for the aircraft carrier strike groups. And the now famous Go Fast video from a Navy F-18 off the Theodore Roosevelt, USS Theodore Roosevelt, I saw that and received that video on the Navy's secret network. It's because I was in charge of meteorologists supporting these aviation operations. I received an email from a two-star admiral in charge of the exercise. And he had actually sent it to a number of one- and two-star admirals like me in charge of aircraft carrier strike groups and other support commands. And the title of the email was Urgent Safety of Flight Issue. And in the text, he asked if anybody knew what these objects were, and it was the Go Fast video that was attached. And he said, report to me immediately if you do, because we might have to cancel the exercise because of safety concerns. And of course, once I saw that, I knew immediately what was occurring. This is nothing we could have engineered. And then, interestingly, the next day, that email was wiped from my computer, and eventually confirming what was, reported at the
So it just
hearing.
disappeared out of your inbox even?
Yes, exactly. And the inboxes of all the other addies, there were many more, and including my deputy, who was a senior civilian. And so, of course, we believed it was inside some compartmented program, and that video was inadvertently released. And now that's all come out at the hearing.
Interesting. What were you thinking when you first opened that email? Like, were you thinking, God, I don't think this is meant for me? Or were you just surprised by the video?
Well, I thought two things, Brian. First of all, a previous job of mine was the superintendent of the U.S. Naval Observatory, and that is the command in the Navy that's responsible for cataloging star positions and their brightnesses used for satellite navigation. But I had a team of astrophysicists and astronomers, and I learned from them how large the universe is. And we're in a galaxy of 100 to 400 billion stars among an observable universe of over 100 billion galaxies. And it's just very arrogant of us to think we're the only species that's created a means to travel between celestial bodies. So when I saw that, I pretty much, it was confirmation to me that there was some kind of extraterrestrial activity occurring. And again, that's all coming out right now.
Yeah, it's interesting what we've learned over the last couple of weeks. Ben Hansen and Admiral Tim Gallaudet, thank you both so much for coming on tonight. We really appreciate it.
You know how much I'm getting sick of that explanation, John? It's like he didn't even answer the question. He went right into a spiel about how there's so many things in the galaxy, and that was proof. Well, look, I saw something on the video, and so I knew that there were so many things in the galaxy, so it must be aliens. Ouch, it hurts me so much. Everyone says that. And while I do believe that, we believe that, right? We believe that there are the possibility of many different righteous beings, and we're kind of quarantined to this earth. I don't think that we can just go out and start saying, well, aliens are coming. That's such a reach. So, yeah, anyway, what do you think about that whole thing? I mean, he knew it ahead of time. Another proof that something else is going on here and that this whole thing isn't just disappearing.
I mean, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I pulled from that video is, I mean, I'm a systems engineer, and it's super easy to get into somebody's mailbox and delete emails. So, I mean, that could very well be possible, what he's saying. You know, I don't know what was in the email, obviously, what he was saying, besides what he told us. But obviously that part is that could be very true, that somebody's going and deleting emails right out of sent mailbox, out of your inbox and whatnot. So it's very easy to do. But about the other side of it, yeah, that always bothers me so much too. The fact that they always say, like, oh, there's just so many stars, so there's got to be aliens coming here. Like, it's just like, why?
Like, that's proof.
For one, I mean, the spaces in between are just enormous. So even if you didn't have a biblical outlook, I mean, it would take you even at light speed, it would take you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years to travel the distance between most of these inhabitable worlds, you know, that they claim to have found through NASA. So, I mean, but from a biblical standpoint, yeah, we're quarantined. Why would anybody want to come to a quarantine zone? You know, we just had a pandemic. Probably shouldn't mention that word, but we all know about quarantines. And clearly you wouldn't go into a zone that was quarantined. You would be like, nah, I'm good. I'll stay home. I'm going to go over to this place, you know? So it doesn't make sense from that point, from a biblical point of view either.
Yeah, absolute. I think it's fascinating. I'm going to look at the chat real quick. Just want to remind everyone, we got 153 watchers tonight. That's record. So let's hit that like button, because it really does help. It brings in more people. Every single like that you get actually brings in another person. I've seen it happen. I mean, all of a sudden we get like 10 more likes, 10 more people come in, and you can see the spike actually happen. Hit that like button on the program, and it'll push this video out. And that way you can help tell the truth about what's going on here. Let's dig further into this. Top military 4-star general Mark Milley. This is the lead guy interesting guy, and I can already see your lips wanting to move on this. But let's watch the clip first. It's kind of interesting. Here we go.
And now to a story News Nation has been following from the very beginning. The nation's highest-ranking Army military officer speaking out about UFOs following Congress's historic hearing. Army General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is backing the Pentagon's claims that there is no evidence the U.S. has non-human-made vehicles. David Grusch, the UFO whistleblower who gave the News Nation exclusive interview, has claimed that the U.S. has a secret alien retrieval program. And General Milley says Grusch shared what he believes to be true, but says based on briefings with the Pentagon's UAP office, he has not seen any indications of a cover-up program. Joining us now is Ben Hansen. He is the host of UFO Witness on Discovery Plus. Ben, thank you for being here. Let's dive right in. So what do you make of the general's comment?
Well, honestly, Kelly, it's not all that surprising. If you look at the other statements he made, he said there is a lot of unexplained aerial phenomena out there. That's true. He talked about a lot of the reports they're getting that there's some of it that's difficult to explain. So we've heard that from the Pentagon before, but I think a lot of people kind of assume that those who are in the highest levels of leadership would know everything. And I know this sounds really kind of conspiratorial, but I think we would be surprised that a lot of our elected officials in the executive department, legislative, and military probably isolate themselves for plausible deniability. And maybe they're not told on purpose because they're going to be the targets that are going to be called out on the red carpet or subpoenaed in hearings. So in my opinion, it's not surprising.
All right. I'm going to let you take over the John, because this is an interesting character. What do you think is going on here?
Well, I mean, we spoke a little bit before the show on this character. I mean, you can see him now. It doesn't take a sophisticated person to do a Google search and see where he flip-flops on the Ukraine war on multiple articles, and that's and then China too. So I've seen him flip-flop on different things. So, either A, he's lying at the verse, or he's told the wrong information at the beginning and then told different information later. And so I don't know if he's lying or not. I don't want to put, words in his mouth. But about this, I do agree what he's saying. Like, I mean, that guy that spoke at the end there, he's like, well, not everybody would be read in on these projects. So, I mean, why would a general be read in on a R&D project that probably doesn't involve the Army? Because, I mean, if anything, it's probably the Air Force. Mm-hmm. So I like that point that he made.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of people say, well, does the president know about this stuff? We don't know. With the president, they might consider a temporary employee. I mean, there's a lot of people that are lifetime workers at this place, and they might have pushed some of these projects off and kind of push some of the money over there in different ways. They can do that. That's what was brought out at the congressional hearing this last time that we covered on this channel. If you want to look back at that, I live streamed that. You can watch it on this channel. But it was a fascinating thing. I would scrub ahead about an hour and a half. The last hour is the most interesting, because everything's just kind of intros and pomp and circumstance. But so it's no surprise that this is happening right now. I don't want to get too far into I think they're hiding UAPs and UFOs, because that's really not the point of this channel. It is fascinating, but the point I want to dig into is the religious aspect of all this stuff and how it's combining with all this stuff. And there's one thing that I think is fascinating. And that's how fast two forces get together and kind of clash heads when they don't agree with something. And when that happens, I'm talking strictly spiritually now, we see people try to discredit other people and say that they're not telling the truth, right? That happens in the Bible when you're trying to produce the correct message. I mean, they even said he's a wine bibber. He hangs out with sinners, right? They try to discredit him. And so what we're seeing right now is things that are happening that are trying to discredit things in the truth. Watch this.
Straight up, do you feel any differently about Grusch because of this reporting about him seeking treatment for dealing with what he had to live in Afghanistan?
God bless him for serving our country, keeping us free. My father fought in the Pacific, and to the day he died, I never would wake him up over his body. I would always grab him by his big toe. because I don't know where he thought he was going to be when he woke up. It's a real deal. We deal with it now. We accept it. And for anybody to discredit one of our veterans for that, to me, is sickening. It is just sickening. I knew about this before it was going to break. He and I are friends, and we communicate fairly regularly. I'd ask people to pray for him and his family. Unbelievable amount of pressure this guy's been put under. He's a patriot, regardless of all that. You throw his testimony out, you still have two pilots. I guess they're going to go after them next. Hell, I don't know. They chased UFOs. They saw them. They everything. And, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that this man served his country and is suffering for it. And now we are stigmatizing this further. One of my best friends is bipolar. I've received awards from agencies in the state of Tennessee for my, I dealt my legislation and outreach to the community, to the folks with mental illness. Look, you cut your hand. Nobody thinks anything about in Knoxville about going over to UT Hospital emergency room. You got something going on in your head. There's some stigma attached to it. That is wrong, Chris. You and I both know that's wrong. You and I both know, I guarantee, have personal close friends that suffer from some sort of mental illness. It's a horrible stigma. This man served his country. Dadgummit, we got to do better than this. I'm so disgusted about this. I just can't. I couldn't. And when I knew about it last night, I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning. Hell, I couldn't get back to sleep. This is just.
I wonder if they had gotten a
completely.
tip that he had broken his legs badly. Would they have reported that? If they had gotten a tip that he had dealt with a bout of lung cancer, God forbid, would they have reported that? This is something that you report because you think it reflects on his credibility, which means you're playing to a stigma, and you're pushing at cross purposes with the U.S. government, who had no problem with his disposition or mental fitness after the treatment. But here's where we are. I just wanted to check in with you to see if it changed your disposition and the veracity of what he told you. You say no, good enough for me. Let's go forward.
We're over the target, brother. Let's keep the pressure on. If it wasn't for you all breaking this story, we wouldn't be where we are today. So God bless you all.
I think I want to hang on this point for a second, because I think there's a lot we can learn from this. Wow. So one thing that comes out to me is that they think they are going and doing the right thing, and that they're opening up Pandora's box is what they're opening up. They try to contact these things, finding out they got UAPs or going and searching after these proverbial aliens or whatnot. I mean, the devil's going to make it look like you're doing the right thing, and it's going to go right along with his agenda. That's how it always works. But number two, and the most important thing I want to emphasize here, is whenever you're doing something, and I've seen this in my personal life, whenever you're doing something that is against, I'm not saying they're doing something against any spiritual side of things. I'm just saying that whenever you're doing something that is good, 100% good, you go into this and you're going to be spiritually attacked. And it's going to look, and the devil's going to use any tactic he can. If you've got sin in your life, if you've got a problem in your life, he's going to use it to discredit you. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this as we get into Tiffany Gomes, who is the crazy lady on the airplane. Poor girl. I feel really bad for her. But anything, and it will go viral. It will make you look terrible. I actually have fear about this in my own personal life, just doing this. I've thought about it several times. I hate to admit this, but just stopping doing what we're doing here because, what if that's me someday? What if I get on the news and then they start digging into my background? I mean, we've all got something. I mean, that's why we're on this earth. We're not Enoch. We've flown away. And I think everyone should just reflect for a moment and think, even if it's something that's super small, like you have a tendency to gossip. That's actually not a small thing. You have a tendency to gossip. What if that was made known and that was completely legitimized and broadcast, and all the billions of people on planet social media, decided you were a terrible person and needed to be shut down? Poor David Grusch. That's all I have to say. Poor guy, because he came out with what he believed was truth, and now he's getting attacked by them releasing his medical records, something that's HIPAA supposed to be private, and saying that he is he is crazy and he's gone to mental institutions. He's gotten help. He's fine. But I think it's something interesting. What do you think about that, John?
Well, that particularly hits me hard, actually, because my dad served as a nurse at the VA, helping patients like Grusch until he retired. So, I mean, a very long time. And as I've heard, as much as, without releasing HIPAA information, as much as my dad could tell me about some of the situations that he's had to deal with, with some of these soldiers that were very, mentally damaged in different wars, from Vietnam all the way up till current day. And the fact that they're using that against him to try to make him look like scum, I think that's a very low blow on their side. And actually, in my personal opinion, actually makes them look worse. That makes them look really bad. Like the side that released that, they look really bad to a lot of people, especially any ex-military.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I have Peru up next, but I'm going to skip it just for now because I've talked about the crazy. I'm not going to call her crazy. I think she's an interesting story that you guys got to see this. This is fascinating. If you haven't dug into this story, it's really quite interesting. I'm going to skip it. I'm going to do Peru at the end because everyone's heard. If you've been on social media just for a little while, you've seen the lady that gets off the plane because she thinks she sees someone that's not human that's sitting beside her. I'm going to recap that. Warning, it does have language, but I bleeped it out. Take a look at this short recap. This is just a portion of it.
Everyone can either believe it or they cannot believe it. I don't give two but I am telling you right now, that mother back there is not real. And you can sit on this plane and you can die with them or not.
Die with him or not? My goodness. And so obviously she's not 100% hitting on all cylinders. I'll put it that way. And there's something going on there. I mean, obviously, because you would filter that down a little bit if you really believe that. But I mean, if you truly believe that. But I still feel bad for her. Because let's look at what happened. If you guys haven't seen this is going to blow your mind. Because I'm going to show you the guy she sat beside. You ready for this? This is from his own words. Watch this.
All right, so the internet has heard the story of the woman on the plane with the reptilians. But thanks to her delaying the flight, I just got home, so now it's my opportunity to tell my side of the story as the guy in the hoodie. So we're attempting to fly out of Dallas, Fort Worth, and then basically this woman, she sits next to me and she's clearly been drinking. I'm minding my own business, and sure enough, she sees my hoodie that has this Freemason logo on it. And on top of that, she noticed my ring, so she started to ask questions. Nothing dramatic, just asked me, do I know what these symbols mean? Why am I wearing it? What's the purpose? Yada, yada, yada. And long story short, I basically just say, hey, I'm a Freemason. I even briefly explained how I educate about Freemasonry here on TikTok. Next thing I know, she basically starts to grill me about low-level Freemason and that it's all Satanism and that it's ruled by reptilians and blah, blah, blah. So I simply put my hood up and I started to ignore her and basically just mind my own business. She starts getting louder and louder, and then basically she's like, you know that they worship Lucifer at the top, right? So I looked at her dead in her eyes and I said, I am Lucifer. I heard one individual laugh behind me, so I figured somebody got a kick out of it at least. She starts running up and down the aisles, freaking out, saying I'm a reptilian, and then all this other stuff, she's going to get off the plane, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't show all the footage, it just says that she's trying to get off the plane because of, I'm not going to say it here on TikTok, I don't want to get banned, but then also talking about how, I'm secretly also trying to take over the world. So I looked back at the guy that was basically chuckling before, and I winked at him. So I basically whispered something under my breath saying that, Freemasons don't care to rule the world, we rule the universe. And I looked back at the guy that was laughing before and just kind of winked at him because he started laughing again. Well, I didn't think that she could hear me, but evidently she did, and it actually escalated it even further, and then they delayed the flight, and so on and so forth. So moral of the story, don't believe everything you hear on the internet. And Freemasons don't care to rule the world when we rule the universe.
So much to say about that. I'm just going to preface this with, we don't know if that guy is truly the guy that sat beside her, but I think it's fascinating that that even if that was true, my goodness, if you sat beside someone and he told you he was a Freemason and that he had all these tattoos on himself and that we rule the world and he's actually Satan, I I don't know if I'd stay on the plane either. To be honest, I don't think I would go out with a bang like her, but I'd be like, okay, that's enough of this today for me. I'm going to go back to bed. What do you think?
I gotta agree with that, to be fair. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would have brought up that he has tattoos. Clearly, he knows what he's tattooing on himself, even if, I mean, I would assume so, that he would know that this is what the symbol means before he puts it on his hand. So I probably wouldn't have spoken to him about the tattoos or anything if I had sat next to him. I've flown a lot, and I have sat next to some very strange people. But I try to talk about some things that are, just normal everyday topics, like weather, basic stuff like that, where I'm going, what I'm going to do when I get there, stuff like that. But obviously not giving much. But yeah, I mean, if she was drinking and that was on her mind when she saw him, clearly that could have possibly happened. The other thing is that guy could have just made that video to get clicks. Maybe he wasn't sitting next to her. Maybe he saw it go viral, and then he made a video about her so he would go viral, which it seemed to have worked.
Right. And so, yeah, it could have very much just got him popularity. People do things for clicks nowadays. It's like it's not the love of money that is pure evil now. Well, maybe it is because clicks give you money, but now it's the love of clicks. But anyways, she did actually release today, 16 hours ago, a official apology, and so I'm going to play that right now. I want to talk to you about what's in it and what's not in it. Here we go.
Hi everyone, it's me, Tiffany Gomez, probably better known as the Crazy Plane Lady, which is completely warranted. As you know, I have been unwilling to speak on the viral video, but I do finally feel that it's time. First and foremost, I want to take full accountability for my actions. They were completely unacceptable. Distressed or not, I should have been in control of my emotions, and that was not the case. My use of profanity was completely unnecessary, and I want to apologize to everyone on that plane, especially those that had children aboard. Can't imagine going through that and trying to explain to your kid what in the world just happened. We all have our bad moments, some far worse than others, and mine happened to be caught on camera for the whole world to see multiple times. Sorry, trying not to sound like Minnie Mouse. Well, it has been really comical for everyone, and I have highly enjoyed so many of the memes. On the flip side, it is very invasive and unkind, and I don't know what I would do without the love and support of my friends and family. They are loyal to a fault, and I don't know what I did to deserve them. Sorry, y'all. I hope that I can use this experience and do a little bit of good in the world, and that is what I intend to do. I hope that you guys can accept my apology and I can begin to move on with my life.
So when I first saw this video, I was like, is that the same person? I'm not well versed on picking out facial features and absolutely knowing that this is the right person. I'm impressed with it saying this is probably from TMZ. It has those that watermark on there, and they probably did their homework in backgrounding this, hopefully. But and makeup can change a person's face completely. You've seen those makeup videos, ridiculous. So this might be the same person. I think it does sound a little bit like her. I think she was drinking, and I think that's probably what was going on. And she just got a little bit unfiltered and left the plane. But an apology was interesting because she didn't, if this is the same person, I assume it is, she didn't back down on her story. I thought that was fascinating. What do you think, John?
That is very fascinating. Actually, it seemed heartfelt apology, and it was trying her best. Any excuses, which is kind of nice, but I do wonder like about why she didn't speak about what happened.
Right.
Maybe she didn't feel like the need to or anything. I don't know.
Fascinating. Yeah. And so I think she did the right thing. I think she shut off all social media. This is why I feel bad about someone, because when you become someone that talks about something, let's say that her thing was she wanted to talk about this, not necessarily probably what she wanted to do, but if she was on social media and she got viewed by many different people, let's say like this, and she went viral. She got a lot of criticism and she shut off all social media. She did. She canceled herself. She's a marketing professional, I think, if I remember right. And she wanted off of social media. That means no income, basically, because, that's how you market yourself. You're in marketing. And so that's a hard decision to make. And so coming out with a video like this and saying, hey, look, I'm sorry, essentially gets her back into her jobs and stuff, and hopefully gets a little bit of her income back. But I feel for people like this. David, I feel for her. What is her name again? I'm going to find it. Tiffany,
was it?
Tiffany Gomes, I think, Gomes. I hate to dox her like that. I'm not trying to do that, but that was the name that I saw. And I feel terrible. I don't think that people should be so quick to pound someone, even if they were wrong. It gives people grace. I believe the Bible says that. I mean, if you were in her shoes and you did something wrong, you had a sin. Let's say hers was misusing alcohol, and oh man, just put yourself in her shoes for a second. So I think we all need to think about that, no matter if you're her, Gomez, Gomes, what's his name? Grusch. Gomez.
Grusch, Gomez,
whatever.
Get them all.
or there's been a number of them. Everyone that's in the news now, I try not to put too much weight on, because poor person. They're just being completely destroyed by social media. Anyway, that rant over. We have another thing. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
Oh no, I was just rubbing my nose because I don't know, I itch all the time.
So I want to talk a little bit about, you found something and you dug into this a little bit. This is the Peru chaos that's been going on. Now, Peru has been experiencing some wild things, and I don't think it's I don't think this is unusual for them. Can you preface this with anything?
Yeah, I did a lot of digging on it. Maybe we can talk about that after the video. But honestly, I've lived in Bolivia. I lived there for 6 months. I lived in Guatemala for 2 years. So, I get to see a lot of the cultural stuff in these different countries, and they believe in what they call brujeria. Like the witchcraft. They believe in this. They have ancient. Like in Peru, I'm sure it would be the Inca. That would be ancient Inca Empire. The descendants of the empire, that they're still doing the same religious rituals in the background, and the same with Guatemala, except for that would be the Maya. That would be they would be Mayan descendants. So there's a lot of their culture that is in with their religion, the ancient religion, not Catholicism. Some claim to be. So in that, you tend to have spiritualistic experiences more often than anyone in United States culture would. So that's how I'd preface this video.
And there's something to that, because there's in spirituality, no matter what, if you're calling up demons and you think they're your gods, or if you're calling up God himself and the good angels of the Bible, then there is something about having a number of people doing the same type of worship, whether it's chanting and going and doing these this New Age ritual, or reading the Bible. The Bible says that where two more are gathered, there he is, and there's power in that, in having a community praying for you. There is that's a serious law of, what do I say, engagement, right? The rules of engagement are that you have many more people that are on the same path as you. You're going to have more spiritual power, because that's the way it's hooked up. Now, this is what I think is coming down the lines, and this is what I'm really worried about, the UAP thing, because, and maybe I'm getting sidetracked here on a rabbit trail, but when we start calling out to these things, or when we start believing in UAPs, we're bringing in the same spirituality that's happening down there. And then you're going to have all these people calling out for these aliens, and you're going to have a lot more power on one side versus the other. Now, God is much more powerful than all these people, but he is bound by the courts and the rules of engagement as Satan is. And so it's a clever tactic. Do you have anything to say before I play this video?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you get these groups of people starting to believe in this stuff, and whether you look at, we've had where you've talked about how ancient demons appear as, they as blight and stuff like that. In English, that's how it's described in, strings and whatnot. So it is, these people still believe, and that's what they still see, and now the same thing is going to happen now in the United States as well.
I think I understood you. You're breaking up quite a bit, unfortunately, but I think I understood what you're saying. I don't know what it is tonight.
Sorry.
Something weird going on.
I'm gonna buy new internet. I tell you what, man. Verizon.
All right, here we go. Here's the video. And now I'm going to ask everyone, if you're listening to this, you got to pick up the phone. You got to look at the video, because you're going to have to read, because this is in a different language. If you don't understand it, then it's going to be fast. Here's 1 minute and 9 seconds. Here we go.
Pobladores de una comunidad indígena en la selva de Perú aseguran que extraterrestres invadieron su comunidad y aunque se defendieron a tiros, las balas no les hacen nada. Este impresionante video captó ese instante en que los habitantes le disparan a los supuestos seres, como ven, en medio de la noche.
Los vecinos dicen que están aterrorizados. Ellos describieron a los entes como gigantes que miden casi 7 pies de altura y que visten trajes que parecen de astronautas. Vamos a escuchar.
Son extraterrestres estos señores, son vestidos con blindados, son tipo del hombre verde que persigue el hombre araña, igualitos, son señores. Yo les valió 2 veces y no caen, en vez de que caen se elevan y se desaparecen, señores.
Los miembros de la comunidad están haciendo vigilias por las noches para protegerse y tratar de capturar a los supuestos seres extraterrestres que dicen habrían atacado a una joven. La verdad es muy extraño este caso.
Okay, so they actually didn't show the images. I've seen the images, and they're terrible. And we're leaving a lot of terrible out here because we don't want to make this rated less than what it already is, because it's pretty gruesome. And we're not sure yet. This is something we're following. We're not sure if this is spiritual or if this is something else. Go ahead, John. What do you think is going on here?
Well, hopefully my internet will handle this, but in all the research I did, there appears to be incidents going all the way back to 2008 of what they call los pelacaras, which is the face peelers. And so, but the legend is based on the fact that these people come in a hood usually, or with armor, one of the two, and they're bearded white people. They call them gringos, obviously. And so and that's how they come. And then they take the people. The legend goes that they peel their face off, they take their organs out, and they fill the corpse with money or jewels or other things. And then they leave these bodies. So when the people find them, they find the money, and it's kind of like a gift to the person, so that the person doesn't go to the authorities with it. And that's the legend. It's pretty gruesome, honestly.
Oh, that's terrible. You didn't tell me that.
That's been going on since 2008. Yeah, I was kind of saving it.
My goodness. Yeah. So what's the point? What's the point of doing that? Why would they do that gruesome thing and then give someone money?
Well, I hate to say this, but in Guatemala, it's very known that one of the most lucrative businesses that these people do, not the people of Guatemala, but these cartels or whatever you want to call them, these horrible people, is that they traffic humans or organs. And so it's a very lucrative business. So they're finding young people, usually 15 to 20 years old, because that's when the organs are in the prime condition, and they will take the organs out and put them and then they transport them, and then they sell them to hot and stuff as donation. But obviously donations with money cost. But then they of course leave the money there so that the people don't go to the police, and then the police don't find out, and then they'll pay out well, because these people are very.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't want to know anymore. I'd hate for that to happen. And I do believe that at the end we're going to experience some pretty gruesome things, and I don't think it's going to be human, or it might be human, but it might be possession. I think that we need to keep an eye on what type of spirituality is going on down here and what is allowed, because if you're part of God's church, you are protected, but there's going to be a lot of terrible that's going on, and so that's terrible. We're going to keep an eye on what's happening here, because I think it's fascinating. The mainstream media down there is saying that this is aliens. I also found it interesting that, and you don't have to say everything you told me, but tell me what the general thought is on the technology in the U.S. and what they think about the U.S. and everything like that. That gives us an idea of understanding.
Well, in my travels, specifically in Guatemala, because I didn't speak Spanish when I was living in Bolivia, so I didn't get to talk to all the natives. But in Guatemala, I got to learn Spanish, so I was able to speak to people in different towns and different villages and stuff. And I would speak to them, and I talked to them about stuff, and we talked about all kind of stuff. And they would come across and be like, "Oh, so I saw Star Trek. It's amazing that the United States can go to the stars like this, and they can do these kind of things." I was like, "What are you talking about? That's a movie." And so they don't have where the limit of knowledge in the small town, village, mountains, and stuff. Just think, well, this United States, what we see is what's out there, and so
you're breaking up pretty bit. You're breaking up quite a bit. But what you said was they see what they see in the movies is what they believe the United States has, because it's United States people, and that's another plug for what you take in is what you believe, and
Hollywood.
It'd be dangerous what we put into our minds. And so they believe that this is what's going on there. So I've actually had, and sorry I stopped you halfway through that. I wanted to make sure that your video is working. But I've had mission stories that have come back and told me that when they were out in these villages, I forget exactly where, but they would come back and say, those creatures that you have in your movies, in Star Wars, those are the ones that come and attack my village. And they would say that. They would say, yeah, we've had Yoda, we've had Spider-Man, we've had things like that come and attack us. And so I don't think that was a gringo coming and attacking. I mean, I'm not talking about this instance. Maybe this instance was absolutely like traffickers or something like that. Go ahead.
Well, one thing they do mention in that video that you showed, I don't know if it's the we just saw, but that guy in the blue and yellow shirt, he says it was like the Green Goblin from Spider-Man. That's
interesting. Huh. So that's fascinating, because that leads me to believe that this might be a little more spiritual, but maybe it's, I don't know. We're going to follow this story and kind of keep track of it, because it's an interesting development that's happening, and I think we're going to have more and more unique, strange instances that are going to become a more and more a normal part of our life as things grow into this strange new normal that we know is going to start happening. So, wow. So what else? Go ahead. What are you going to say?
Well, I don't want to. I mean, I was going on. I researched, but that may not be anything to do with this. This is what they're calling it, but this might be a more spiritual thing that happened to them, like you say. I mean, this very well could be. Because they're reporting that on the news. They're reporting that it's extraterrestrials. Or there's another news story that's saying it's miners searching for gold, which I don't really understand why they would say that. How can a miner fly? Because they say they shot it, it didn't die, and then it flew away.
Oh,
and
they
I
said that.
don't see a miner doing that. Yeah.
Ooh. See.
Yeah, Spanish comes in handy sometimes.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I read an article where they said that they shot the guy. They shot this thing, and it disappeared. It shot up or left, and they said, we shot it. Yep. We know we hit it, and it left. So that leads me to believe this thing's not. It's a NHI, as the government calls it. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Right. But I think that as things move on and progress down the road that we know we're on right now, we're going to see a lot of more strange and spiritual things that are happening. So keep your eyes peeled. Do you have any last thoughts? Go for it.
Yeah. What do you think of the fact of maybe what we're going to see is legends being used by spiritual entities. So you see, this has been a legend since 2008, and the original legend could have been based on true events of real cartel stealing people's organs. But then spiritual entities take that legend and go further with it and imitate it in a way to trap the people.
Yeah, we have seen. I do remember that there is, Greek gods, all this stuff, Zeus and all this other stuff. These things like to identify as gods. They like to identify as these legends. And so who knows? I think that might actually come to be. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen yet, but that's kind of the purpose of Strange Normal Research Group. And I'm going to plug this real quick. This is important to me, and it's important to everybody here. If you want to be a part of the Strange Normal Research Group, you can go to patreon.com/strangenormal. We have a big Discord we're on, and we are constantly going through it. We got all kinds of stuff. This is actually an old video, but you can see all kinds of stuff that's happening here. We're about 60 strong in this group, and we are every day of the week. We got so much stuff happening, and we're finding the latest stuff to talk about here on this channel. And also half the stuff that's on there we don't even get to talk about because there's just so much going on right now. So if you're passionate about talking about this and you want to partner with us and say, hey, we believe that the Bible prophecy is pushing this thing and churches are not talking about this, help us out. Go to patreon.com/strangenormal and you can be a part of this group too. Would you pray us out, John?
Sure.
All right.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this night. Thank you for all the topics that we've been able to cover. Help the truth to come out. Help us to be messengers of your to everyone. They can understand the truth about this topic as it's very important. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Stick around for a second. I will be right back. Folks, thank you so much for watching tonight. And I look forward to seeing you back here again. Maybe we'll do some more weekends because there seemed to be a lot of interest on the weekend. We usually get just above double digit or triple digits tonight, and now we've gotten we're up to 180. Praise God. Looking forward to seeing you again, and look for us every Thursday night around 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Talk to you very soon. My name is Brad. This has been pure strangeness and absolute normalcy. Strange Normal. See you next time. Thanks for watching this segment. Subscribe to our channel and join us every Thursday night for more daily strange topics and more. Find us on Discord by accessing patreon.com/strangenormal. See you there.